Hello and welcome to the Hive Thrive Hour. This is Hive Thrive number 18. Our guest today is Ura-Soul. I'm Shadows Pub with our co-host Buckcoins. Buckcoins, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Enjoying the sun and living the good life
And sunny Guatemala.
down in Guatemala. Exactly. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Just been feeling very grateful lately. So hopefully I'll bring some of that gratefulness right into this show today.
I hear it's catching, so we'll see what happens. And Ura-Soul, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm
I
also in sunny tropical England here, enjoying the sun.
well, I'm in sunny Ontario, Canada. The temperatures are actually a little cooler today. It's in the mid 70s, but the humidity's up in the 83%. So I have the AC on just to clear that out of here. And
Understandable.
pardon me.
I said understandable. We don't have that luxury here, but yeah.
Yes, I know. One of our usual guests here, who's actually at Clarinet Fest in Texas right now, Alexandra. She's mentioned that you do not have the pleasure of AC in the UK. And
1 week a year is not worth it.
yeah, that's true. So I noticed on your account that you've been on this blockchain, well, the legacy blockchain, since 2000, September 2016. And
Yes, that's right.
my usual question is, what brought you there?
Most of the questions you can ask me have a long answer, so I'll try to keep them short. But so I found out about Steam pretty much. I read the white paper before it was even launched because I had built my own social network before that, which was running. It's called Eureka as well. Is at eureka.org. and I discovered that I was being censored basically by Google. The whole site was delisted from Google. You couldn't find it in Google. So I was looking around trying to understand what the other options were, and that's when I came across Steam. But I didn't understand it at the time when I read the white paper. It wasn't until it had already launched and built up some steam and traction that I actually realized what it was and signed up and joined in.
So,
So really was just looking for a way to have uncensored social media, really.
and blockchain is the most likely possibility for that. What made you
Yeah, I mean,
choose? Go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say at the time there wasn't really any other options. That was literally the only reliable option.
The concept actually was so new that if you did any searching around for Steam and Dan, that you there were a lot of people going, "Oh, it's a scam! It's a scam! It's not going to last." Well, maybe some of it didn't last, but we're definitely still here. What made you use choose your username?
So that's also a long question. I'll keep it short. Long answer. Basically, I wrote a book which is unpublished, which also uses the word eureka, and a lot of that focuses on language and basically identifying certain patterns that are within the English language which are not recognized by hardly anyone, which I have detected and found, and they're very interesting. And some of them are from very old language, and the letters UR is a symbol in that phonetic structure that I uncovered. So I was just thinking about UR anyway, and then someone at some point that I knew came up with a name, Ura-Soul, that they were using for something, and it sort of stuck with me. And all of the word eureka and and all these things just came together. And basically, it's the answer to the question of why is your name Ura-Soul? What does it mean? And the answer to that is because you are a soul and I'm a soul, and we don't really need names. So it was just basically like the most complicated name I could think of that also sounds simple.
You love delving into those types of thought processes, don't you?
Uncovered a lot that's of great value through doing that, and I don't really see anyone else doing it. And I spent many years being a programmer, being forced to sort of think in similar ways. So yeah, it's kind of like one of my specialist skills, but I haven't really been able to demonstrate the point of it yet to most people, but hopefully I'll get there soon.
I think sometimes there doesn't have to be a point. Sometimes just the very like I've read some of your posts over the years, and when I'm reading through them, I don't really look at them and go, "What's the point of this post?" But I do look at them and think, "That's a perspective I hadn't thought of before," and that's kind of what keeps me reading. You
Yeah,
know,
that's one of my goals. But the thing with the language aspect, there is a very specific purpose behind it, and it teaches there are very specific things we can learn about ourselves from realizing that there's this unconscious um, patterning happening within us. That's I mean, I don't know whether the inventors of the English language knew about it or not. I don't think they did, but yeah, to explain that it requires a book basically. So that's what I'm waiting to publish.
I have a suspicion that it's not so much that they knew it as they felt it, and it was
Yeah.
part of the intuition and how the words developed.
I think there's an element of that. I think it's very complicated. I think there's an element of that. I think we have to understand our own self, our own conscious and unconscious selves, to then understand how this pattern that I'm describing might have come to arise. And that's not an easy thing to understand. But so in a way, my book is explaining not just the language as best I can, but also explaining our unconscious self to, what I've learned about that over 25 years as well. So that's kind of the point of it. And the aim is to empower people and help them free themselves and solve some of our problems.
So
So yeah,
with
need to get it right.
without wanting to sidetrack, um, I do a project where I use words to explore personal growth and spiritual journey. And I work from a list of random words every month. And it fascinates me that so far, in 2 years, I have not come across a word that could not fit into to talking about the subject. That's something we can have a conversation on sometime, but I thought it might be something you might be interested in.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I've got I've done a lot of research into language, and I've got about 3,000 words that I've written down, which are have encodings in them, which show you that the structure of their origin is not what we've been told, not what you would see in an etymological dictionary. And yeah, it's kind of like about a third of my brain is dedicated to that, and it's a completely different part of my personality. I have to sort of switch into it. But yeah, happy to have a conversation at some point.
Oh, yeah, for more reasons than one, but I don't want to sidetrack. What do you like best about the blockchain?
Yeah, the free speech aspect, the empowerment, the decentralization, the way that it's opens up opportunities to anybody who wants to learn, what's freely available to get involved. Um, and the way that it's the logic of the blockchain is a direct challenge to the logic of the rest of the world, pretty much the corporate world and the centralized systems. So as soon as people start to see the benefits of it, they can start to apply that to the rest of the world, which is something that people can do as a result of using other blockchains and Bitcoin, but they don't generally see it in a social format in the way that they do on Hive so easily. So that's very powerful.
It is. What do you like least?
I would say the lack of cooperation and coordination and communication, which is ironic considering that that's kind of what a community is meant to be based around. I feel like the current version of it is not optimal when it comes to um, collaboration and working together. And yeah, I mean, there's probably as many reasons for that as there are people on the chain. But yeah, I think like when I first used Steam, I wasn't really into capitalism, but I found it exciting that you could compete to have ideas valued and earn money as a result of that. I can see it's just like a game, really. It's like a fun game where people are also communicating. I feel like that's been lost a little bit due to some of the rule changes with payouts and the arguments and things. But yeah, we can solve all these things.
With enough communication, which somehow on the blockchain, communication seems to a lot like trying to herd cats when you want to get into collaboration.
I think there's just a lack of shared vision, basically. Although people didn't like Steam Inc., at least they were a team that had a vision.
True.
I think that's what needed. Either on level two projects, people just need to be very focused and achieve a lot on their own, or there needs to be more collaboration on the root, on the parent chain.
Yeah, there's pros and cons on both sides of the coin. Um,
Absolutely.
so you've brought your social network over to Hive, the Eureka Social.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm
Um,
I'm looking at it. It looks a lot like a front end. Is
yes.
there differences there that maybe I don't see on first glance?
No, it is at the moment. It's a general front end, and I do have plans to add features which are not on any other Hive sites, but in order to do that, I have to have a functional site that does the basics. and so that's what I've built so far. It's comparable to the other sites, PeakD and HiveBlog in a lot of areas. It doesn't have 100% of the features yet, probably about 80% of the features that most people need. It's also got some other things that some of those sites don't have, like its integrated Leo threads and some other technology. But yeah, at the moment it's a foundation base camp for building some new interesting things that I'll be doing in the next few months.
And that seems like a real good segue to turn you over to Buttcoin because if I know him, he's got a list of questions. Go for it, Butt.
Yes. Uh, yeah, great. Really happy to have you here today. And I think, before we dig into Eureka, I do have a bunch of questions about Eureka, but and you started to touch into this even in the intro, but I'd love to kind of even go a little bit deeper into these ideas of decentralization and your philosophies or your concepts around digital sovereignty. Um, I'm kind of curious. Your definition of like what you see as the what digital sovereignty means to you and in practical terms for you, and then how that like translates to what you see as potential for Hive. I don't know if that question makes exact sense, but I'm just sort of trying to dig out your philosophies and ideas around having more control and more digital sovereignty over our data and profiles.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I did a degree in systems design at university. So my training is in systems, and that could include any kind of system from a nuclear reactor through to a system for blockbuster video or anything you can think of. And so I spent a lot of time studying systems, and but also I studied history, and I have always known people that were involved in governments or different organizations from even from being a little kid. So I was always very interested in how all of these things fit together. And also, I was very motivated by World War II. Actually, my grandparents were in that, obviously, and um, I watched a lot of documentaries when I was growing up about Hitler and that whole storyline. And what motivated me was wanting to understand how people could become so evil basically, and to try to overcome that. So I spent a lot of time studying free will and psychology and sociology and every subject basically, and fitting them together so that I could understand how to improve the situation for myself and for other people and the future generations. So when I think of technology and freedom and decentralization, I always bring it back to the human being because the technology all comes from humans, and it won't do anything without human input. Even if it's automated, it was still only automated because humans did that. So from that perspective, I think you have to understand, in order to understand what digital sovereignty is, you have to understand what human sovereignty is or individual sovereignty. And that's a big subject because it's been coerced and stolen a long time ago and shaped into national sovereignty, which is a fiction. It doesn't exist. It's just an idea that people feed into and say it's real. But actually, it's just lots of people's individual sovereignty that's being kind of stolen effectively. And so that's a problem for me. And that's a huge subject in itself. But to simplify it all, we all have free will, and that's the origin of everything that we create. And if we don't respect free will, we've got a lot of problems. And most people are not really free, and many people don't even think free will exists. That's how unfree the world is. So I think we have to first understand what free will is. That we all have um, if we live in balance, we're all basically able to do anything, and that's how it's meant to be. And balance means that we don't overpower ourselves or other people. So there has to be this interaction and this communication, so that we're all aware of each other's needs and we're respectful of them, and we don't, push people in ways that cause problems. Um, but also they don't push us. So there has to be this constant communication. And basically, I see digital sovereignty as being an internet or digital representation of that. That's the ideal, where people can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't cross lines. And the devil's in the details in terms of how do we negotiate what those lines are, those boundaries. Um, and I think Hive does an interesting job of that in that we don't really have much that we can stake in a digital world other than currency. So by using stake as a way to kind of set some boundaries about who has power is interesting. It's definitely not perfect, and it does cause problems sometimes. But on the other hand, we can't directly delete people's accounts or remove them from the chain, no matter how much money we have. Well, unless you're Justin Sun, but that's another story. We have ways around that now. So yeah, in essence, it's about ownership and being free to express yourself without other people crushing you. That's the most important part, and also because it's all running on code. The more I think that's one of the least spoken about things really on Hive. The issues with all of this is that at the moment it requires that you can develop code to really be free on Hive. So it would be good to see that change a bit, and I think with some of the tools that are coming out now, we might start to see that happening a bit. Block trades, in particular, block trades just put out a post talking about how they were going to probably try developing an API node for mobile phones that could run on smartphones. So that's pretty much like the ultimate in terms of digital decentralization, where everyone can run their own node. And at that point, um, yeah, Hive will be pretty much indestructible because you can't, it's possible to shut down certain servers here and there, and the centralizing forces in the world could, if they wanted to, cause some problems. But if everybody who has a phone can run Hive and keep it going, then yeah, very difficult to shut that down.
So you mentioned
Yeah.
tools. I'm just going to interject here for a minute. The untrending tool, is that still functioning?
So I just relaunched that as an on-chain report, which you can find at eureka.stats, UREKA.stats. I took Hive Live, which was the website that hosted the untrending report, offline because it was using old code, and I'm just trying to focus all my energy into Eureka now. So I've taken the code from that and created a new version of it, which runs to produce reports. At the moment, I've only put one or two out to test it, but I'm going to optimize that, and it will start running weekly. So there'll probably be a new one out tomorrow, I would have thought.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want anything changing on that or any new information added or taken away or anything, then just leave a comment under the post, and I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Nice. So this I always find this subject interesting in general. I find human sovereignty and digital sovereignty. Um, I actually sometimes feel like they're in competition with each other, or not maybe not a competition, but they're when you juxtapose them, like something about the digital realm feels like trapping like it just somehow in my world, when I think of like human sovereignty or animal sovereignty, like it's like returning back to nature and back to how we were, but then we live in this current world, and then we are interacting with technology, and technology is clearly what's going to be moving into the future. But when I think of the two together, I struggle to frame them together, because one feels kind of like a trap, and one and one feels like we should all be like gathering berries in the woods and living off of the land again. So so I always have, we've met in person and had really some interesting conversations, and I know you've got this kind of social mentality and this healing and restoration mentality, and so I kind of go one step farther and take it past the digital sovereignty, and try to like square or make sense how number zeros and ones could have the potential of creating healing, human healing, and how these systems that you're trained in, and how the combination of the sociology that you have in your background and the systems you have in their background, and where those connect, so that we could discover potential more freedom and more healing and more social restoration through the digital. I know it's a very broad statement, but take of it what you will and pick what you want, and go ahead and chat off of that.
Yeah, so that is actually the main point of tension in me when it comes to these subjects, is those two realms and how do they come together. And I agree, it does. I do agree that there's a feeling of the natural self, which is free and unbounded, ideally, although usually we're not unbounded, but could be unbounded relatively. And yeah, sitting in front of a computer screen or sitting using a phone all day does not feel particularly in alignment with that. And then you have people like Elon Musk and other people saying, "Oh no, that will all be solved because we'll have brain implants." And no, I'm not happy with that. I feel like digital technology is useful as a tool to achieve certain things, but it's a temporary stage. And I personally don't want to be, a cyborg. I don't really feel like that's for me. If someone else wants to do that, it's up to them. But I actually have a perspective which is very different to not to. I mean, there are many people that agree with me, but to the average tech person, they will, probably not be able to relate particularly well. But I've had experiences, and I've spent as much time studying the self internally as I have spent working with technology, probably even more time by now. And I've had many experiences which are not common, which you can find research written on it, and you can find many people that will talk about it, but still it's quite rare. So, for example, telepathy and other psychic abilities, I have studied at great length and I've experienced, and I can teach people some of them. And so, my perspective basically is that technology is a poor replacement for our own internal abilities, and we definitely shouldn't get hooked on it because we're weaker as a result. So really, what I should have done a long time ago is gone and lived in the jungle and and not built anything using technology. But I also want to help people, and I don't feel like it's good to run away from the state of the world. And the main tool that I have to reach people at the moment is technology. So since I was already trained in building technology, I just carried on doing that. And if it weren't for the fact that I got censored so much, I probably would already be, teaching and using books I've written and spreading information more than working on technology. But we still have this hurdle of free speech on the internet. So yeah, that's why I'm focusing on Hive and trying to open up some pure channels of communication with the world. And yeah, I mean, it's for each individual to find the balance between their own natural body and self and technology. And everyone has their own process for that. I personally am a bit too far into technology for my own liking at the moment, but I do intend to change that. And I think that um, the power, a bit like I mentioned earlier on about how decentralization can teach people how to think in a more liberating way, even if they don't use blockchain a lot. Just the fact that they can see how it works and recognize, oh, we could integrate some of this thinking into the way that we live our lives and the way we relate with other people. That's empowering. And so you don't have to use decentralized technology a lot to get some of the lessons from it, and to help break out of the more restricting systems that most people are born into. So for me, the goal is not technology, it's liberation. But we are born into systems of technology and governance and control that need to be changed, in my opinion. So um, yeah, it's understandable that we use those systems and um, just try to make the best of them. But at the same time, I think it's a good idea to have a broader vision and set some goals that are that feel good. And like you mentioned, the word feeling. A lot of this is about feeling, and there's only so long you can sit and use a computer before you feel awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, get out in nature and get some sunshine.
It's definitely a double-edged sword because I, I technology in the future is coming whether we want it or not. It is coming, and and enough people will continue to use it. So like kind of you're swimming upstream if you're going to trying to pull people back to nature without technology in a way. In my worldview, there's just between the AI, between bioengineering, um, this future is upon us, and I think we're going to see dramatic changes over the even just in these next 5 years, and and so yeah, I guess I'm kind of glad that somebody with your background is is able to sort of get into use tech to possibly at least maintain some degree of freedom. And I do think Hive is in this equation as well. And sometimes I feel with uh, I kind of I try to explain to people why I'm in Hive, and I know we're a small community. You know, active people between 15 and 25,000 is the number I hear often said, and I, I I get confused, like why more people like for me, it's like the last place or the only place that I found that is even attempting to be a bit more human oriented and human based. So I keep coming against this wall is like, why does there feel to be one lack of retention, like the the push against it? Like why do people feel like they withdraw a little bit? Maybe is it crypto because it's tied with crypto and people have the crypto scam thing in their mind? I don't know what it is exactly, but I I I get confused because it just Hive feels so obvious to me. It feels like if we were going to have this future, I don't want to live in the Facebook, Elon Musk, TikTok future. That future on social media is not the future I want to live in. So I'm willing to sort of swim upstream over here on Hive, you know. But let me get to a question. I just your point was just making me think, and I just wanted to get that out of my system. So if we were talking about all of the all the stuff that we're talking about currently, and we say what in your world, in your view, is Hive doing right currently? Like what is going on Hive right now that is creating the most human empowerment in your view?
Yeah, I think the foundation of the technology right from the very beginning with Steam got many things right. I think it was definitely elements of the design are definitely genius, and some of them have been overlooked and kind of pushed into the background a little bit. I think they should be brought forward, but um, the idea of valuing ideas and creating your own currency and having an uncensored decentralized network to communicate is one of the most powerful I've ever come across in terms of technology. And yeah, the reasons why people move away from that, like you mentioned, and Web2 and other groups, I think a lot of it is due to the negative view they have of crypto and all the scamming. It wasn't like that in the beginning before the NFT craze and all the scamming had happened. Steam was much more positive and people were much more positive about it. It was growing very quickly. Nowadays, when I tell people about crypto, they automatically assume that they have to invest and it's risky. And I'm kind of saying, no, you don't have to invest. It's literally zero investment. So yeah, that's a big part of it. But in terms of what's being done right or is being done right, I think just the continuation of the improvement of the technology by the developers is obviously important. And sometimes it doesn't seem like much is changing to most users because it's back end technology changes. But as they make things more and more efficient, gradually we'll get to the point where big changes can happen in terms of what's possible. Like I mentioned about having the phones be able to run nodes. At that point, it would be like BitTorrent, effectively, where anybody can run their own BitTorrent node, share files. Except for now, we're sharing a cryptocurrency and we're sharing communications and social information. So I think block trades, Dan and other people are moving in a good direction philosophically in terms of wanting to create protocols and infrastructure that enables anybody to um, digitally interact and build communities. Uh, where I think it could be improved is just generally having people more sharing a vision and being willing to invest in directions that will cause growth and um, uh, yeah, there's challenges there with regards to the DHF and the structuring and the lack of accountability, and those are hurdles that have to be overcome. But I think it depends who you're talking about. There's obviously many people in the community. There are some people I think are doing great things who share my vision and outlook in a lot of ways, um, and they often don't get enough support. So um, yeah, I'd like to see that change. But in general, you can't really go too far wrong with Hive in the sense that it's because its structure and foundation are so strong in with regards to decentralization and so on that there's always going to be this underlying strength to it all. But
Yeah, I sometimes feel like we're in a race because it kind of feels like we're at the cusp of a bunch of things that could really, they're just powerful with the like you say, the block trades and the recent post and being able to have the nodes in the palm of your hand, unstoppable. You got the BSC coming. You got we have a bunch of things that it feels like we're right at the edge of, and I worry that my worry brain is like, but do we lose, do we not, do we lose the people, and then it's just like, oh, look at it, we got all these this great stuff, and there's 50 devs with no users to use it. Like, like I don't like that. I guess that's the nightmare scenario. I'm just kind of like, let's get this out because we're ready now. The people are ready, but it's easy to say that and other to do it. But so kind of just, we're about to switch into some different questioning, but just to kind of put a cap on this. And so if we were, we've touched into a couple places where we'll call them frustrations at this point, um with how the aspects that like frustrate us, maybe the DHF you mentioned, maybe the speed of development, um the communication aspects that you spoke of as well. I guess if you had a magic wand and you could wave your magic wand and and correct or shift one thing, what do you think would be the highest priority thing to wave that magic wand on to get Hive going, in continuing in that direction it needs to go?
I think there's a after I was a software developer, I also ran a digital marketing company for a while, and I was never a fan of marketing. I kind of viewed all marketers as evil, until I really looked into it and thought more deeply and realized, oh, of course, well, if we're building stuff, then we have to have a way for everybody to know about that, and so marketing is essential. So we need to do it in an ethical way. And I think, having thought a lot about how to market Hive, and spoken to people that are doing that for Hive, it's a very challenging thing to do, just like it was challenging for me to promote my own Eureka before Steam existed, because I was getting blacklisted. And I do think that the corporations like Google and Facebook derank, deboost mention of Web3 technology like Hive that could compete with them because it's a threat to their business, basically. Hard to prove that, but I do think they're doing that. So I think the marketing and growth problem is one that needs to be addressed urgently. And even if people don't want to throw loads of money at advertising, we need to have a good vision and plan of how to grow Hive. Um, and yeah, that's the missing link, I think. And I think that having VSC and other technologies um, can help to solve that, because people will just organically learn about it eventually. And if it's better than what's out there already, then they'll start using it. So I think that's huge. And I think there may be new projects coming off the back of VSC, which really solve a lot of these problems. But if I could wave a magic wand right now, I would say, um, so when Hive was created at the fork, we obviously had all of this controversy with the Ninja Mine tokens, and they became the foundation of the pool for the DHF, which is meant to be used to grow Hive. And that's one of the reasons why I carried on using Hive at that point, was because I could have used other projects, but I thought, well, they've got this chunk of money there and good people and talented people, so I'm sure we can use it. But we only have a certain window of time to spend it and to grow Hive, because competition is going to come along, and it's going to be a challenge. But what's actually happened is that the DHF really is still there. That money hasn't really been used much, and people always complain about every possible thing they can think of to complain about with spending that money. But also, like, I created a project called Strategizer, which was a DHF project to try to get money to do market research, which could form the foundation of proper marketing strategy. It didn't get supported. It's a side topic, but I just got the impression that there's a lack of understanding of what it takes to grow a project like this, amongst some of the bigger stakeholders, or just a lack of interest. I don't know, either way. But so yeah, if I could wave a wand, it would be to have professional, experienced Web3 developers and marketers sharing a vision for Hive of how to grow it, and us all agreeing, or mostly having a consensus that this plan makes sense. And then every single person that's working to try and make something on Hive can reference that and say, right, this all makes sense. This checks out. The research has been done. We know that if we do X, we'll get Y. So when I'm building my project, I will have these thoughts in mind and I'll help to fill in that space for Hive and that kind of thing. We don't really have that at the moment. We just have projects that are using their own initiative and their own vision to create, which is fine, but it kind of leaves Hive as a project a little bit gappy. And looking at it from an outsider's perspective, I can see why professionals and developers don't really come to Hive that often. I think it's actually the practicalities are actually difficult for them to even do that. The documentation is often out of date, incomplete. There's no proper marketing material for them to be enticed by. There's not even I can't even show anyone any promotional videos for Hive. I don't even know if they exist. So yeah, it feels a bit like it's a kind of secret party, in a broken down warehouse that's illegal, which is really cool and it's really great to have fun there, but it has to be kept quiet. And that's okay, but that's not going to take Hive to the next level or make it a contender to replace the corporate world of Facebook and so on. Um, so I think it just comes down to what I'd most like to see is people more openly talk about these things and having more people work together to achieve the goals they want to create for the future of Hive in that way. And not everyone's going to agree, but I don't really see these things being talked about too much. It seems like there's quite a lot of fraction and fractured kind of groups, and um, so yeah, more cohesive vision, I guess, would be a concise way of saying it.
Well, I think maybe you just gotta be a little more patient because I'm sure next year that rally car will. That's all the promotion we really need. So it's just like you just wait. It's been 4 years. It'll be the fifth year that rally car will pay off. I'm sure of it. Uh,
Someone was telling me that the Bitcoin rally car has been winning races, so yeah, there's hope.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're definitely dipping into the realm that we have talked about a bunch here, and I'm obviously being a dick when I say that about the rally car. But yes, I think the key I would like to see more open, honest dialogues about transparency, KPIs, the purpose of some of this DHF. I'm kind of all for like coding and backside of some of the stuff that's being funded by the DHF, some of the building aspects that are the skeleton and framework. I'm all for that stuff, but projects that are outside of that. I would just like to see just more. I think when you do a grant in any other world other than the DHF proposal system, you have to have follow through, and there seems to sort of be like, okay, I made my post and I got people to like vote for it, and now I have it, and then that doesn't seem like we miss the step where you follow through and you close the circle and you provide your results and you show it. And so for sure for me it's a pretty easy place to start in my world, but I don't know if it's easy because it just is. It is what it is until it isn't. But anyways, let's take a move here into you know some of the stuff, because you did mention an individual can have an idea and have a project and have a purpose to their project, and they can go for it here, and that is one of the powerful things here in Hive. And yeah, you have brought your Eureka social to Hive in the last months, and I'd like to just talk a little bit about how that's going. How do you feel? How long have you specifically been working on the bringing it to Hive? Because I know it's been around. You had a lot of the stuff before Steam was even there. But
Yeah,
how long
so
have you been bringing it to Hive?
this version of the code is new and it's not taken long to develop it at all. In back in just before Hive was created, I spent quite a bit of time integrating Steam into my old site, Eureka.org, So I actually had a hybrid site. I don't think that actually exists anywhere else on Steam or Hive. So it was a fully private social network like you have on Facebook, where you can have private messaging, private posts, and privacy and control over all the information. But then you could also post to Steam as well. And so it's pretty interesting. It took me quite a while to code that, and then the fork happened, and then I just stopped because it was quite stressful. I'd put a lot of time in. I didn't really know what was going to happen, and I just mothballed it. Um, so relaunching on Hive has felt like the right thing to do, and it does solve a lot of problems in that now that this version of the site effectively is client-based, which means that it runs entirely in the browser. It doesn't really have a server side to it at the moment. I may add that at some point, but at the moment, I just wanted to experiment really to see how practical that is. In the same way I was talking about decentralizing the back end of Hive by having nodes running on phones, by having the website entirely running in a browser, it means that actually it can't be shut down. So, I don't see this happening, but let's say, for example, a government or whoever wanted to target my site and take it offline completely, the actual website itself, the code, still would run for anybody who had it. They could run it on their phone, on their browser, or whether I exist or not. So that's important and powerful, and it's working well so far. Um, so happy with that, and I also like the design and the feel of using the site. It feels a bit more modern than some of the other ones. So yeah, it's a good start, and development has been pretty rapid. There's still a few bugs here and there, but I'm working through those. And yeah, excited to move on to the next stages, which are really the point of it in a sense, which is to um, partially I'll be integrating some VSC functionality when that's ready, and also the main goal of it really is to um, provide a more friendly, usable UI general for Hive, but then also and part of that means, which I haven't done yet, integrating a lot of educational material in there so that anybody can come to it and they don't know anything about Hive or Eureka, and they will learn through using the website everything they need to know about Hive and Eureka. So that is definitely a huge problem with Hive as far as I'm concerned. Massive lack of information and availability of information. But I've played a lot of computer games growing up and in my life, and I have a pretty good understanding of how to pass on information about the system in that way. So that's a big thing for me. So yeah, we're doing that VSC, but then the other part is I want to make use of Hive as a data repository. So at the moment, the different apps store data on the blockchain in different ways, but the core of it is social posts and so on. Splintlands, obviously post their game information on there, but we can actually use it to store anything, like a database. So what I would like to do is um, uh, basically make it an information resource. So Facebook came along and in my opinion, was deliberately designed to create a memory hole on the internet so that people would find it difficult to remember important information. They're constantly distracted by, the next flashing light and dopamine hit, and I feel like something huge was lost in that. In the forums before Facebook, you'd have massive threads, big groups of people who knew each other, collaborating and sharing information, and that's really missing in a lot of ways. So I'd like to create tools that help people to do that, which is huge for community. It helps build community and helps people explain themselves and deal with complex issues and find solutions, and also build a history as well, in a way that can't be censored. So I have a few ideas for how to do that, different data structures, different representational um, formats for information, and new ways to use voting and posts and things, which I think people will find interesting. Um, so yeah, the combination of all those things really is, I can sort of envision how that might play out, and it seems very exciting. It seems like we can create a new concept, a new kind of community Web3 system, which is actually adds something new that wasn't there before, that brings more complex levels of economics and information um, to the sort of social network environment.
Yeah, that's interesting. It kind of sounds like you're talking about kind of unification and making aspects of how we're communicating with each other a little smoother, because that is one of the pieces that I notice. I want this to work, so I deal with it. But it definitely kind of feels like, okay, you're always kind of going out of something and going into something else in order to access this or searching this. I sometimes find that the flow of like uh, of of the way you find things and communicate, and it like it takes a bit of like hitting your head against trying, oh crap, I gotta do this, oh I gotta move out here. So if anything that unifies that, I think is a win, in my world. Well, I'm kind of curious. You talked a little bit about documentation issues, and I'm just maybe just touch base briefly. Like, what have been main challenges of building Eureka on Hive?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been building on Steam and Hive for many years, so I already have worked through the most difficult challenges of understanding how to overcome problems that relate to. Usually, it relates to the API servers as a developer, understanding which procedures I need to call to get which piece of information, and how do I get custom information that isn't easily available. That is not obvious a lot of the time, and apparently that's being improved. I just spoke to Blocktrace actually yesterday on chain. He said that the new versions of their code are solving that with automatic documentation. So hopefully this will all improve. Uh, so yeah, maybe in the next year or so, that side of things, maybe we'll get some proper documentation written. The thing is, when you look at Web3 projects during the golden, let's say not really the golden age, but the kind of the period where they were really exploding and there was massive investment, you had a lot of quite well-funded projects where they would have technical authors and marketers working to produce websites and documents professionally that are attractive to people, that actually excite them and want, it draws them in, and people share them with each other because they're impressed by it and they say, "Wow, this project seems amazing. Look at this. Look at what we can do," and it's all really easily explained. That is not, we don't have that on Hive. Basically, it's a lot more. It's not so advanced, the text and the languaging, and that, you know it, we don't really have, I don't have a word to describe this concisely, but there's a principle that I've known about ever since I became a professional developer 25 years ago, where it's kind of an ego thing, where developers who get together and they're friends with other developers, they know they're smart and they know that they're doing things that other people can't do, and they get this kind of mentality where it's like, well, if other people don't understand how this works, then they're just dumb, or or maybe they're insulting me because I'm really good at my job and I've made it really well, and if they don't understand it, then that looks bad on me, and I don't want to accept that. And I don't know exactly what it is, but they tend to just assume that everybody can see what they see when they look at the website, but they don't. Like 99% of people don't see the same logic and flow when they use a website as a developer does. And that's where you get within marketing the entire realm and sphere called user experience design, UX, which incorporates study of the entire process of interacting with an organization or a system, not just clicking on the website, but every single part. Like if you have phone lines, what happens when you call the phone line, or what does the color scheme cause people to think and feel? Every single detail gets looked at to try and make it better, and to try and help the project achieve its goals in a more effective way. um, and I feel like individual DApp creators can apply that themselves to their own project, but we don't have that operating as a whole on the sort of mother parts of the system on Hive. The core systems, the language, the coding, the API documentation. So yeah, I mean, if this was a really well-funded project and you had a professional corporation running it, they would have a whole team that was dedicated to listening to customer feedback, listening to the community and the target audiences, and finding out what their problems are and their hurdles, and basically setting professionals tasks to overcome them and improve, and having this constant flow of feedback and fixes coming in, just constant iteration and improvement. And that's how Google operates, how all the big corporations operate. It's just the most efficient way to do it. um, and I'll just finish by saying that every single person that I've tried to onboard to Hive, I think ever, has had a lot of problems just doing basic onboarding. And probably 70-80% of them gave up, and they wouldn't have continued unless I was there helping them. And that even is happening today, even with the improvements to onboarding, because there just is a lack of guidance in the websites, and people who are running the websites assume that certain things are obvious, which definitely are not obvious, especially to people who don't even use blockchain. So yeah, I just really want to see those. I think we'll see massive change basically when the average X or Facebook user can come to a Hive site and actually get their questions answered automatically just by using the site. then more light bulbs will come on more quickly, and they'll be more excited, and we'll start to see shifts happening. And I don't really think there's another way to solve that other than through education and information.
I think I've heard the dialogue is eating your own dog food. Basically, when the issue a lot of times is a developer doesn't eat their own dog food, or they don't go and actually witness or see how people are using it. It's more, and I sort of, even in a message that we wrote back and forth the other day, I was explaining, or I was saying this thing of that I think a lot of the devs are, they're on like their PCs or they're on their laptops, and they're doing everything with their flow and their experience. But the world is moving away from laptops, and the world, like, there's less and less people on a full computer or a laptop, and there's more and more people on mobile or on a tablet, and a lot of people have switched to that. And so even it's almost, there's even the this translation of like, well, I do it like this, it should be easy, it should be known. And then so you have both the way that the user is not really having a good feedback loop to the developer, and then you simultaneously have that the developer is kind of designing a lot of, I think a lot of like our sites work the best if you're using your laptop or your computer to use them, but it's just simply not how the majority of people in the world are using devices. And like you keep saying things that are just like in my worldview. I keep having this. I have this dream of like I've been calling it, we're doing a hive hub now, and I just have a dream that like there could be more hive hubs around the world, and these hive hubs could be places where it was almost mandatory that like the guys from Three Speak go and spend a week, and like you're there for 1 week and you're seeing users and how they really use it. I think there should be a brand. We all go and meet in Hive Fest, and in the early years of Hive Fest, the first one that I went to, there were these amazing roundtables, and so I got to sit at a table and use Peak D with with some of the guys that were creating, and I was trying to like understand. It wasn't called, it was called Steam Peak at that time, I think, but then they didn't do those roundtables anymore. But I just think anytime when we are together as Hivians and we have a dev there, it's like this is powerful to be like to have the devs sitting there seeing the, look, you're making me eat this dog food and I'm trying to use it and I'm an idiot user. Hey, look at how I use this. Because then we can start having some nice synergy, I guess, and we could maybe start getting someplace. But yeah, well, I'll leave that at that. So so here I'm kind of interested in, you dipped in a couple times into features that you are coming out with and things that you see in the future. I'm kind of curious, like what if any feature that you have that coming out in the future are you most excited about?
So I've got a bunch of features which have been in a list, which I'm not 100% sure which ones I'll develop or in what order. I would, I think, in a lot of ways, some of the most exciting ones relate to VSC, but I now realise that they also open up a lot of legal headaches. Some of them, like for example, I don't think I would, definitely wouldn't be hurrying to create a Web3 version of eBay, but it is something that could be done, and I do know how it can be done basically, uh, without too much challenge. However, it then kind of opens up legal challenges and issues where, what happens if someone tries to sue you for XYZ thing. So in the absence of having my own, expert international lawyers, I'm going to pause on that for the moment. But I think that, yeah, the VSC is definitely very exciting, and being able to bring lots of new ways for people to interact, which could help them solve problems. For example, fundraising, or having our own DAOs, that each community could have its own DAO, that kind of thing. Fairly simple to do, and really could transform Hive from being a kind of, people see it as a blogging platform, to being an actual community tool, which solves real problems. Could be of any scale really. So that's definitely a huge thing. And in terms of information, so Farseem developed the Propolis system, which is basically like Wikipedia for Hive. So I'm considering running a version of that as well, so that we might have. I mean, initially I'll probably use it as a resource for Hive itself to host information as a knowledge base, which I think he wanted to do, but he was having trouble getting people populating it. So I might find clever ways to get that populated first of all and test it all out, and then I might start customizing that to actually provide things that haven't existed before online, as far as I know. Uh, so, uh, so for example, you might set a challenge and say, I've got this area of, let's say, a research topic. I want to know the answer to this question. You have sites like Quora, which were created for that, and they got very popular. But obviously, with Hive, you can earn money for doing the same thing. So that whole that's an entire field in itself, actually solving problems using information, and so that combines Hive's social features with the economic features with um, reputation and so on. And so there's several like threads that are operating on Hive at the moment that aren't quite completely ready yet, but they're close. And another one is Peer Verity, which I don't know if you know about, but that's a project that Blockchain is running, which is a protocol for managing reputation online, like a peer-to-peer reputation system. So once all of these things are sufficiently ready, it will suddenly become apparent that you'll be able to do many things on Hive that we've never done online before. So I'm looking forward to. I don't think it's going to be just me making use of them, but definitely looking forward to adding my piece to that. And the goal of it, basically, the overall goal is to empower people and to help people access information um, in new ways. And Google has, for a long time, had a public mission statement, which is probably very different to the private mission statement, which is essentially that their search tool was there to help people access what they need, what they personally find valuable and what's going to help them in their life. That's the point of it. So I think we can do that in a decentralized way, but um, doing it a bit differently rather than just scanning what's out there and framing it in the ways that we see fit. We can actually collaborate. So it's about collaboration to solve problems and uncover information.
Yeah,
Research, yeah.
I love hearing this kind of synergistic idea of the propolis. Farrison was on a few weeks ago, and yeah, we talked about how it was a really powerful idea, and he talked about how he struggled to get people to populate it. But yeah, I mean, if maybe because it's like separated, maybe if it was embedded in your thing and it was like sort of had some sort of easier form to populate it, that would be very interesting, because I think it's valid, and I think there's a lot of good information already on there, a lot of basic information. So even just people having an easy access point to get to some of the populated, some of the stuff that already has been populated, that would be like great in my view. So I really like hearing that you want to find those points of collaboration. Um, so I have we're kind of wrapping up, and I'd like I kind of want to ask you something specific. Based on not a need or something, but something that I'm very interested in, and I'm curious if you have a way that you could see that Eureka would do it. So we're currently, onboarding quite a few people. I think we've got like 40 or 50 onboards, and we're just literally today I leave from here and go to another meeting, and we just got all these cards set up, and I think it's gonna double our speeds are gonna start doubling. But one of the pieces is, we have people getting onboarded, and we have initially how to track them, but then we start it's like tricky to keep track of them, and we're trying to use the feeds on ecency, but it's just not quite doing, it's just a little bit janky. Like in essence, what we're looking for is a way way to, if they post in whatever community after we've already onboarded them, how do we just go to one place and be able to see a feed of anybody that was onboarded through our little project that, oh, they posted again, or do they post again? Is there any tool on Eureka that would solve that? Like that if we that if a person we onboarded, if we had a follow account that followed them, that we would easily be able to see just any post that would post, no matter what community or where they posted, just that we would be able to see the specific people that we onboarded.
So each account on Hive has metadata attached to it, but you can't really rely on that because people can edit their own metadata. So they could remove themselves. I mean, really, they should be able to remove themselves from your, connection, ideally, if they want to. But you could add metadata when you onboard them, depending on how you onboard them, so that you could have a code running that checks for metadata and so on. But I think that that's probably not really necessary. Uh, so it sounds like really what you're looking for is a system that you would run, which lets you build a list, and just lets you maintain that. And um, like for example, both Eureka and PigD have a favorites um, system where you can just add people to your favorites list, and they'll always appear in one list. So I mean, you already really have that. It sounds like the issue that you have is that you're not seeing when they post in community specifically. Is that right?
I think it's more that they, I could go back to our community, and you can click in and look at them individually, and we do have a way to access like a feed. Um, but it just feels a little bit like janky, and I'm looking for a smoother way, and ideally a call, so that we could just have it out of any post that we make. If you want to see everybody being onboarded through the Hive Guate hub, like, you click this link and you'll just have a up to date, it's just a feed of like the newest posts of anybody onboarded through us. That's what I'm looking for. And there is like a couple ways, but I don't know, some, like, we you can do the favorites, but then you have to rely that the API works, and sometimes it doesn't on Peak D. And we do have a way we're trying to do it with the ecency feed, but I just find it a little bit it's not perfect.
If
It's
you
like
want
workable.
if you want a public list that anybody can view, then obviously favorites are not going to work because favorites are, your own
I
personal
want a
favorites.
I want a public list that anybody wants
Yeah.
to support the project, or the people that we're bringing on as new users. Some people are just using it for the purchase reality. I'm not so worried about that, but we've got two brackets of this project, and one bracket is like more long term users, and one is just like we're just trying to get people using the utility tools. So there's kind of two things, but the people that are making real posts and stuff, I just want a mechanism to be able to see that, and that everybody could see it if they wanted to see who's getting onboarded and who's
Yeah,
continuing to post.
I
So
think what you
Lewis
need is to run. Sorry, go on.
Lewis has mentioned that the Peak D lists have their own feed. That's different from favorites. If I'm not mistaken, the lists themselves are public. Lewis can correct
Oh,
me
okay,
on
I
that
didn't
if
know
I'm
that.
wrong. He isn't typing, so I may be right.
Something to look into. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I would suggest creating your own website, your own web page that which should be fairly simple to do. That basically just that outputs posts only from those users, but that would require some coding to make that work.
Great. Well, I was just seeing if there was anything that you saw on Eureka that would solve a real current reality.
That's
But
definitely
all
something
good.
I'll add to the list. And I'll take a look at the way that lists works on PeakD as well. Maybe I can improve on that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Shadows, do you have any other burning questions, or maybe I should ask you, Ura-Soul, is there anything specifically you'd like to share to people here that maybe we didn't broach into? Anything that you kind of final words of what you'd like people to either know about Eureka, or how they can help you in your journey? Feel free to use this time right now to go there.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I welcome anybody who is a Hive user to come and check out Eureka. We don't have onboarding at the moment, so obviously you have to have an account to participate. But definitely happy to listen to the feedback. We've got live chat in there as well, so you can leave a message in there and just help me iron out the bugs and improve it. I am very motivated to create something that's more reflective of, real feedback and what people are looking for in the moment. So if that's something that you feel you don't get listened to, on other sites, you feel like you're not really being heard, then please do come and have a voice on Eureka. And also, so far the development has been completely self-funded, not asking for any money, and it's actually not the easiest thing to get money from Hive for development unless you're a part of the DHF. So anybody that enjoys um, using Eureka, then please do consider giving me a witness vote, because that's one of the ways that you can help support the project and bump me up the ranks a bit. And yeah, I just really look forward to engaging more with people and hope to see you on Eureka.
All right. So I noticed Lewis also asked if you had heard of the AI search of the blockchain that Blocktrades is working on.
I did see him mention something about new search technology, but I don't know anything about it.
And that also sparked the thought in my mind. Has anybody taken a look at creating a AI bot that people could, newbies especially, could interact with to have their questions answered about Hive?
Yeah, so the Inleo team, as far as I know, worked on that, but it's not launched. Um, I think that is a good idea, and I think it's something that probably should be run via DHF and should be available for everyone. Is a core functionality that everyone should be able to benefit from. I don't know exactly why that hasn't been done. I don't personally have time to do it, but I'm sure someone out there would do. I do know people that are experts in that field as well. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think it can make a big difference. I know I'm on a platform that a lot of the users are embedding bots into their rooms for various reasons, and it just seems like a no-brainer to do so with all the data for how to learn Hive.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Ilio have tackled that, and I know that some of the other witnesses are interested in it, but I haven't as yet seen anybody make that publicly available. I did see somebody made a system that you can use to query the blockchain using Hive SQL. So you don't have to write SQL, you just tell it, I want this information, and it goes and gets it. That's the closest I've seen.
It would be really good whoever creates it in such a way that it can be embedded into each of the um, uh, front ends, so that when people go and use it, they're getting consistent answers right across the chain.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that really shouldn't be that hard to do. I mean, that's a common problem and solution for AI. So yeah, definitely. If anybody out there is a fan of creating AI systems like that, then I suspect that if you put together a DHF proposal, you probably get funded.
It'd be an interesting project, one I wouldn't have time for, unfortunately. So it's been an interesting hour. We've gone over a lot of areas. You're a rather broad spectrum individual. You're not
Thank
just
you. I
about
appreciate it.
blockchain and coding. You've got a much broader view on things. So it's been a real pleasure having you on. And I do thank you for joining us today. And who knows, we get you back another time. And
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
I'd also like to thank all our guests for listening in, and those that are listening in on the recording. And did you have any final words? I know Butt Chain asked, but just in case you thought of something else.
No, just
Uh,
appreciation for everyone and keep being you.
I like that. So with that, thank you for joining us on the Hive Thrive Hour. This has been Hive Thrive 18 with Ura-Soul and your hosts, Buckcoins and Shadows Pub. And bye for now.
yeah, and maybe just before you don't hit record or turn off, I'll just say next week's guest will be Mick Farhat
Oh,
talking about.
McFarhat. Thank you for
Yeah,
reminding that I
yeah.
forgot to ask.
Nah, it's all right. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming here, Russell.
Have a great week, everyone.